Hi guys, so we're going to continue our studies about Black history this month and go with another article from Scholastic News. This one's called Kids Fought for Change. And here you just have a copy of the article. We didn't have the whole magazine this time. So Kids Fought for Change. Unfair laws in our nation kept people apart for decades. About 60 years ago, so 6 decades ago, a little girl named Ayana Naomi and her friends helped bring them together. Brain builder. Do you know anyone else who has fought for change? What did he or she do? Oh, that was on the bottom. There we go. Oh, all the way down there. All right, let's bring this up a little bit. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and read through this article, and I'll read it at the end of the video. And then you're going to go through and complete this activity. I am a change maker because you can be. You have the ability to make changes. 1. Think of a change you want to see in the world. 2. What can you do to make that change? What can you personally do? What can you control? What can you do? How can you take action to make that change happen? 3. Draw a picture of how you will make that change. Maybe you want to draw a small picture and then write about it. That's fine too. So as long as you at least draw a picture or write, or you could do both. Tell me what the change is that you want to see in this world. What can you do to make that change? And draw a picture of how you're going to make that change happen. All right, let's get some ideas right here. Here's the article. Kids Fought for Change. On a hot August day in 1958, 7-year-old, she was only 7, younger than all of you, Ayana Naomi and her friends went into a restaurant in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The kids sat down and tried to order food, but the waitress ignored them. They waited for hours, but no one would serve them. Why wouldn't the restaurant serve these kids? To answer that question, you need to know what some parts of our country were like not that long ago. And remember, we just read Martin Luther King Jr., so we've studied a lot of this recently. Here's a picture of Ayana today. Kept apart. In the 1950s, black people and white people were segregated in some parts of the U.S. Remember, segregated means separate. This was especially common in the South. Racist laws prevented African Americans from going to the same schools and living in the same neighborhoods as white people. Black people also couldn't eat in the same restaurants as white people. And here's a little glossary down here. Segregated, racist, integrated. Racism has a long history in the U.S. Starting about 400 years ago, hundreds of thousands of African Americans were brought to America and forced to work as slaves. By the early 1800s, slavery was illegal in the northern states, but the practice still continued in the South for decades. Even after slavery was banned across the nation in 1865, black Americans were treated unfairly. Segregation was one example of this mistreatment. Ayana and her friends were African American. They were young, but they knew segregation was wrong. They decided to take action. It was a time when many Americans were fighting against racism. Their protest became known as the Civil Rights Movement. And if we see, we're changing subheadings now. A peaceful protest. With some help from adults, Ayana and a group of kids held a protest called a sit-in. We saw that too in the Martin Luther King book, didn't we? Here's an image with a caption explaining that Ayana was at the very first sit-in. A peaceful protest. With some help from adults, Ayana and a group of kids held a protest called a sit-in. They went into a white restaurant and sat at the counter. No one took their order, but they stayed until the restaurant closed. The next day, the kids went back to the restaurant, but the waitresses still wouldn't serve them. Soon, things grew tense. Some white customers yelled at the kids and threw ketchup on them. The kids stayed calm. Wow, they're brave. During the third day, they finally got good news. The restaurant's owners agreed to start serving black customers. It was a big deal, Ayana recently told Scholastic News. It was a slam dunk to be able to sit there and have a hamburger and a Coke. Ayanna and her friends weren't done. For 6 years, they took part in more sit-ins. One by one, the restaurants in their area became integrated. That means people came together. Black people and white people could eat side by side. Even though I was little, my voice was just as important as everyone else's, says Ayanna. So remember, your voice is just as important as everyone else's. How can you be a change maker? I can't wait to see what you come up with.